Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. My name is Jeff Rock, and welcome to another D. Hilton Associates webinar. Today is part 2 of our National Compensation Forecast going into the 20th anniversary. And today we're going to be talking about the benefits. And to the surprise of absolutely no one, benefits are still just as important as they were last time. So we want to talk a little bit more about that. Some of the things are changing because of the perspective of what's been going on in the world. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce John Andrews. How are you, John? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jeff. It's good to be here. I thought our first part was well received, and I knew we should have broken it up into 2 parts. So, we're going to give the benefits and the variable pay just its due course today. So looking forward to visiting with you about that.
All of this is extremely important, and breaking it up into 2 parts gives us an opportunity to really talk about them in depth rather than try to fight it into an hour. So I agree with you. I think that we give the due course of this whole responsibility because it is very important, and people are judging benefits quite differently now.
I think, over the years, credit union boards had this perspective of we give very generous benefits, so we don't have to be as market-driven on the cash component.
Mm-hmm.
And as we see in the marketplace, it's not an or question, it's an and. And so today, kind of going through what we see as baseline, what's emerging with COVID, what's going to be from work from home type of benefits, mental health type of thing. So I think we've got a good program together, so let's get started.
Absolutely. John, I'll give it to you. Take it away.
Okay. So when we look at the first thing we're going to talk about today is the variable pay component of reward and recognition plans. And we do this every year of the plans that we monitor or help facilitate, and we look at what the top metrics are. And I think as you compare your plan to what's out there, it's always a sense of comfort to know we're using things that are not outliers. And so the classic top 10 have been there for a long time. What I wanted to bring everybody's attention to is member engagement. Net Promoter Score has really taken a rise to the top. And I think what happened is we went from work from home, when we went from remote delivery, when we asked people to use more automated services, how did that resonate with the membership? And surprisingly well. I mean, we had great adoption on all of those delivery platforms. Employees had to become help desks, and they did a sterling job explaining what people had to do. So it's nice to see that is going to be measured and recognized and then ultimately rewarded. So we saw a big jump there. When you look at operating expense as a -10 compared from 20 to 21, I think a lot of people said, we want to be cost conscious, but we're going to have to spend some money to reallocate the business and those types of things. And I mean, literally it was probably a black market for computers for a while. Just think, you're the top IT person and the CEO says, we need 47 laptops. Just go down to Best Buy and get them. And Best Buy would probably laugh at you, right?
And everybody in the area said the exact same thing at the exact same time.
Yeah. So, I think that was reasonable to see that shouldn't be as, punitive as we spent money to keep the business afloat, not in terms of financially, but just delivery.
We had to reinvent how we actually did a lot of processes. It wasn't so much a true reinvention, but it was the application of technology that we had there. And it was that technological revolution that we implemented.
And Two items there when you see loan growth versus local market and you see deposit growth versus local market as a new emerging metric. It's kind of been a soapbox issue for me for a very long time, meaning, year over year historical growth has its place, but everybody grew deposits last year. So if it was your best every year growing deposit, does that mean anything? It has to be relative to the market. My personal opinion is I think we're creating the next generation of depression babies. Instead of putting them, the cash in a coffee can in the backyard, they're putting it at the credit union. And because we have a great brand and people, trust us, our members trust us, they took us up on our offer. And we unfortunately, we got a lot of money come in and it's not going away. So seeing how we do relative to our competitors, banks and credit unions, is a real key statistic as we move forward. And remember, our annual admonishment, loan growth and NCUA CAMEL ratings are not good things to have unplanned, yet people still do it. So we're not here to tell you not to do it, but just be prepared to defend why you might have it. So if you need any other information on metrics and where it's going, we'd be happy to talk about that. But today we promised you we'd show you what's out there, and this is what's tracking. So the next thing we wanted to talk about is what's emerging. And one of the interesting things is we know we're having a significant turnover at the CEO level, and the new CEOs are inheriting, 70 and 80 and 90-year-old organizations now. And what do they take credit for? We want the boards to understand that, well, yeah, he did a good job, but look, they started with 15% capital, or, she had this tremendous loan growth, and on and on and on. So what we're seeing with a lot of metrics is carving out the operational piece from the legacy piece to see how this individual did or this management team did. When you focus on it like that, I think it's a better evaluation tool and a better recognition tool to say this is what you get credit for.
Mm-hmm. It's not just riding the momentum off of a retiring CEO. You're able to say, here's how they're carving their own path here.
And from a board's perspective, if you have 15% capital, it could be quite a few years before, you a CEO with marginal capabilities becomes a 10%, becomes a 7%, becomes, we might not even know that it happened. So one of the things we try to get into all our incentive plans is this idea is that just financial metrics don't really tell the story. If you're growing, if you're investing in different markets, if you're looking at new technology platforms, all of that has to be measured in the context of, are our executive teams doing a good job? So the idea of, innovation, that's a big buzzword when we do recruiting. We want innovative folks telling us what's down the road that we can be prepared for now. But when you look at it, it's one of those words you just can't define.
Mm-hmm.
I'll know it when I see it, but that's after the fact. That's post. So how do we put plans together to measure and reward and recognize folks that are getting that on your management teams? So in the past, when we looked at strategic planning, that's the kind of the holy grail of this whole exercise is how do we look at success of activity measures, our metrics of a strategic plan. So when we look at that in the past, what we've done is, okay, here's the 15 things that we need to do this year to be on course to put the new IT conversion in place. So we have check marks, and it becomes activities, it becomes milestones, and it's non-financial because it's yes, no. Is that analog? How do you say that? Up, down?
Yeah, analog. That'll work.
Our guys in our production booth, do you know what, once upon a time, there was something called analog?
Okay. They agree.
It's like Mickey's hands are on the different dial. But that's how we measured it. And after, when we were through with the process, it sometimes became like, I don't know if we got it or we all agreed to that type of thing. But now what we're trying to get folks to do is move to what's the impact of those initiatives? What are the tangible results that we get out of this new piece of software, this new delivery channel, this new product, this new branch? And if we can look at activities, how you can carve it out, that really shows, you're happy to write that check because you've seen the connection between we were pitched an idea, a concept, an innovation. We agreed to invest in it. When we invested in it, we were able to put it into place. Members embraced it, employees embraced it, and look now what it does for us. So that's the sequence we're looking for. The other thing that we're seeing emerge is the idea of a clawback. So we saw this in the Fortune 500 world. If you see it with Wells Fargo and some of the trials, tribulations they have now. If your management team is cutting corners and doing things to hit a number at the expense of, in our case, a membership or the financial well-being of our organization, there should be some type of means to say, not so fast.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not what gets done, it's the how. So we give you an example in our forecast of language that you might be able to use in your incentive plans to say, hey, we reserve the right to go after some of those monies if we think any shenanigans happen.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be like NCUA calls you out on it. It could be anything from you just if it's going to hurt the organization, whether it's your reputation, the balance sheet, we want you to have the ability to look at it.
And this goes back to what we've been talking about with culture as well. If how you do business kind of it keeps getting rewarded in certain aspects, that becomes a part of your culture. And that's kind of the trap that Wells Fargo got in. They were incentivizing the wrong type of risk taking. They were incentivizing the wrong type of behaviors, and it kind of spiraled out of control. Having this in there gives you that little bit of control in the back end to say, we like what you did, we don't like how you did it. So we need to, we need to reevaluate that.
Yeah. So just, there's hundreds of metrics, but just based on our experience, things we're asking our clients to explore. It's just one of my all-time favorites is It's the Wonderful Life, from the movie. So the idea is, if your credit union didn't exist in your market, what would the households in your market be faced with? And invariably, higher cost on financial services is kind of the quick picture. So when we can measure and capture what our rate differentials are, what our fee differentials are, what our access differentials are, and monetize that, households save money by being a credit union member. That's how we walk the walk. Everybody can have a great mission statement, but do you walk it?
Absolutely.
And that's one that we look at. True return on operations is, as people build really good capital positions, capital makes us money. So looking at true return is stripping out those investment returns and looking at how we do with just the core piece of the retail business is very important. Returns on innovation. What is our new product revenue as a percentage of existing product revenue? That's a great example. Is I wanted this new credit card. Okay. Yes, no. So in the old way, it was activity measures, meaning, okay, on June 1st, we went live. On June 31st, we had 500 accounts, and we just have these milestones. But if we're looking at impact, it's this idea of we're going, wow, the new credit card is X percent of our revenue, or now we have our loan portfolio configuration is, it's holding up its fair share of the deal, or it's tracking the way we wanted it to do to make a more diverse loan portfolio. Those types of things.
Yeah. And it actually ties back into the Wonderful Life as well, because you could say, here's how many people that we've impacted because we've been able to provide this as well. So it's a beautiful metric one way or the other, because you can also tie that to an engagement process as well. When people know how beneficial what they do on a day-to-day basis, how much their organization is providing to the community, it provides an opportunity for them to feel very good about what they're doing and why they're doing it.
In today's workforce, the idea that we're a not-for-profit financial cooperative, that our mission is social in nature, our 20 to 30-year-olds eat that up.
Absolutely.
And, and that's why I'm in the business.
Absolutely.
I finished saving whales, not all of them, but then after that,
Your fair share of the whales have been saved, and now we're on to households.
Absolutely. So, with that said, I'm not going to go through the rest of the list, but just some ideas to think about as you go into strategic planning, and if you're an executive trying to show your board why I want to make this investment, or why as a management team we think this is a good direction or course, show them what they get for it. Okay, that's some of the ideas that we looked at. Now, on staff variable pay, our trends are very interesting. They're going two different directions. For all these years, we had these sales and service cultures where we wanted to almost what I call cafeteria plans. I'll give you $1 if you sell a checking account. I'll give you $1.50 if you sell an IRA, or whatever your formula was. They didn't work. They didn't resonate. The two things that happened was, one, people sold the easy stuff. And then people sold the wrong stuff. And then we look like Wells Fargo.
Again, incentivizing the wrong type of risk taking, incentivizing the wrong type of behavior.
So what happened is employees would say, well, I'm not getting excited for $1. You need to pay me $2. Well, our margins didn't change. Rates, the rate structure didn't change. We just were overpaying for things, or we're paying for the wrong things. My best story about that, and this was 25 years ago, is I had to go fix a staff incentive plan, okay? And they paid $10 for every CD that was put on the books for their frontline people. So, back they were trying to raise deposits, so they had CD program and a promotion. They were raising the money, which is a little foreign today, but just bear with me on this story. So this lady who worked there sold... This is her sales pitch. It was brilliant. Granny came in with $10,000 CD that matured. Guess what she left with? 10 $1,000 CDs. So we paid 100% commission on the exact same money. It was our money to start with, our relationship. We just were re-upping or changing the term. And so I said, I have to talk to this woman. This is brilliant.
She's brilliant.
Actually, I would probably want to hire her.
Yeah.
I love the technique.
Don't hate the game, hate the player or something. I don't know what's happening.
It was totally that. And so she said, I don't know what's wrong or people are up in arms. I was laddering her maturities. I go, high five. That's brilliant. But the cafeteria plans aren't the most successful because they're fraught with some issues. So the turning point or the tipping point has been that people with omnichannel delivery just can't figure out who should get credit. It starts in one channel, ends in another, but it could go to 13 other channels. All branches could be on the phone, in person, self-help. And, so do we give everybody a chunk or do we give everybody the same? Do we try to break it out? Do we try to referee that? And you can't do it.
Yeah, you have a lot of hands out for that same thin slice of whatever it may be. Yeah.
We're going back to let's reward the branch for its productivity. Let's front of the house, back of the house. That's going on. Now, conversely, what's happening is we're also seeing it's non-traditional for credit unions, but becoming more traditional. The wealth management, the mortgage, as they become much more sophisticated options, we have to match the market.
Yep.
So if it's commission structures or how they get paid in the non-credit union space, we have to bring that if we're going to get the best and brightest. So again, I preach this all the time. It's okay to have different pay strategies under the pay umbrella. And this is a case where we're consolidating one, we're letting another go. And for the HR person, it's going to be more to manage. But we think it's going to be the best response to what the market is today. Now, the other thing that we're seeing on recognition, and not necessarily tied to money, is some things that we need to do when it comes to recognition if we're going to stay work from home or we're going to have hybrid situations where not everybody's going to be in the same room. And all I want to say is, and I think this was a great quote, rewards are transactional and recognition is relational. So when you have a person not under your supervision in a branch and they're doing something from home or a remote location, it's going to be very important that we step up our recognition game. And for some managers, that's tough because some managers in that core way they've been brought up is they like the energy of a room. They like to see everybody. They want pat people on the back when they see something good. There's tons of books written about that, right? Management by walking around. In today's environment, it's just not going to click. Mm-hmm. So as we train this next generation of managers and supervisors, if we got anybody to take her, because a lot of these 20 to 30-year-olds don't want to be managers, but the ones that do, we have to look at some of the things of how we're going to do recognition. So here's some things we see from a recent study that are making sense.
Yeah. And none of this is groundbreaking or new information, but the thing is that we forget it quite often, very quickly. I mean, when's the last time you did a thank you card to an employee? I mean, you seriously think about it. How long does that take to actually do that?
I've never written you a thank you card.
And I'm letting you know, this is an intervention, John.
This is not the time, Jeff.
John, we have to have a talk. Okay. But it's just the simple things that make a huge impact on the day. And I always go through the process. It's much more than just, hey, great job, knuckles, good job. Yeah, that's an espresso shot of good feeling. It goes up and it comes down real quick. Doing something like these gives them a long-lasting response of, I feel good about what I've done, what I did mattered, and it was recognized that it mattered.
And the cost of doing a lot of things on the list is
zero. Nothing.
Not a lot.
No. A card would cost you a couple cents, but there you go.
And hamburgers were a quarter. How old are you?
Card, John. Card, John.
Oh, God. Okay. So now we want to move into our benefits section. Now, let's start with executives. Just a few things that we're always asked every year and that we like to track because it happens when we look at executive contracts, when we make new offers, or we're continuing extensions on existing contracts. So, and this comes from the D. Hilton database. So every client that we have, we maintain a proprietary set of what their programs look like, and we compare that to national programs. But this is credit union only. So when it comes to president, you look at single and family coverage. You might automatically assume it's 100%, but not necessarily. Mm-hmm. And then when we look at executives, it's, in the same type of ballpark. And then when non-execs, I really see a lot of egalitarianism. That's a lot of syllables.
You're dropping dollar words on this situation. I like it.
But the idea is that I think this is very important. Is like if you were going into negotiation and you get something, if you want to know it's reasonable, we'll always have that data for you. But this is just a quick example of that.
And we haven't seen too much differentiation in the trends over the years.
No.
There has been a little bit of movement, but they've stayed fairly consistent.
No, and I think compared to other industries, we've been pretty strong proponents or commitment to helping out employees with healthcare.
Absolutely.
So we see that not just execs, we see that as staff as well. So the other question we get is, what does the car allowance situation look like? So president versus execs, who offers that? What percentage of exec gets it? What's the average auto allowances, and what's the sticker prices? So again, that's just a file away in case you need it, but we want to always, committed to providing that information for you. So with that said, then we move into staff benefits.
And staff benefits, of course, are going to be a big portion of that and have been impacted a lot with, one, we've had a generational change, and two, we've had a complete change in how we do day-to-day basis, how we work. So the importance of particular benefits have come to the forefront, and ones in the past that we've thought have been very important are not quite as important as they were.
But Jeff, blocking and tackling, the core benefits still
are the core benefits.
Still pay off.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not like we're substituting this new generation of wild stuff and exotic stuff. The blocking and tackling is still there, right?
And we've actually seen an increase of individuals getting involved in that core stuff. In the past where they've either passed up...
You mean participation?
Participation, yes.
Yeah, okay.
If they've passed up life insurance or gap insurance
Yeah.
or things like that, or critical illness insurance in the past, those have been core benefits that we've provided. And in the past, they've passed it. And we'll kind of talk about, we're seeing more and more individuals take those because of, hey, the state of the world as it's in, there's certain concerns and certain values being applied to that. But flexible benefits have been the big number thing. You can't go anywhere without somebody talking about working remotely or not a 5-day work week, 9 to 5. Okay, let's talk about what it means to have a flexible workforce. And one of the best quotes that I've heard recently is that flexibility is here to stay. Those that don't embrace it may not be. And it as kind of goes along with the benefit portion as well, understanding that you have to be flexible with what we're being provided. The other big piece of this is that parental benefits. Huge, absolutely massive. And it's one of the big reasons that a lot of positions they work remote and that people haven't wanted to come back because they haven't been able to have either child support services, something along that line, or the organizations aren't providing those as well to be able to bridge that gap. And we find that they say, you know what, no, I'm going to find a remote position because this has worked. I have children at home and I want to stay there to be able to raise and help that situation.
Yeah, that's a topic that's going to be in our symposium in November, talking about executives, how they're dealing with that, about the executive that chooses to keep the work-life balance, even though we're not supposed to call it that, about
the life-work balance
of, taking care of children or pets and wanting to stay home. Does that hurt the career trajectory?
Mm-hmm.
So that's something we're going to be looking at.
And it is interesting because there's a lot of preliminary research that's saying the old common knowledge of, oh, hey, if you're not in the office, you're missing out on these things, or inspiration comes from those random meetings, and it's not really lining up.
And we're actually teetering on the line of it could be a discrimination issue.
Absolutely.
The people in the office are moving at one pace and the people not. And then we put that against protected classes and there could be some concerns. Mm-hmm. So please be looking at that.
A lot of unique things to keep an eye on and a lot of good perspectives to be looking at. So as I talked about before, the importance of certain benefits have been coming to the forefront. A lot of individuals have been taking things specifically because of the pandemic that's been going along. And none of these are kind of outside of the ordinary, what you would expect, of accident insurance, critical illness insurance, and those that have added life insurance. 75% say they've done it because of COVID-19. So the importance on some of these benefits that we've been providing, that we've had, that people have opted out for in the past, are actually starting to be taken into consideration now and still being very valuable and very important on the day-to-day basis.
It's that classic example of, if you tell your kid you must save for retirement and you must have long-term disability because you don't know what could happen. And for so many years, we'd have all these presentations and yeah, whatever. And then you'd have pretty, marginal participation rates. You hit home for everyone.
Yep.
Nobody escaped this. And now you connect the dots. We've been educating forever, and now we have a real world situation for everybody. And guess what? We're there for them, and that will be remembered.
Absolutely.
That goes to overall employee engagement or experience.
And as we talked about in our last part A of this, or part one of this, is we talked about the human experience. And all of this ties into the concept that this is a human experience. We're all going through this in the same way. We're all having certain concerns and understandings, and the benefits need to reflect that. And bolstering some of the benefits there or offerings in these areas is going to be an opportunity to really provide additional value to your teams.
I agree.
The other piece is kind of the same story here. More people are selecting things that are directly associated with what you expect in a kind of a pandemic, where people do have these concerns about, gosh, what happens if I do leave my family behind, or family members, things along that line. And 21% have selected life insurance for the first time this year. So we've actually seen an increase of individuals bringing this area. So 81% total actually grabbed life insurance in this case.
Help me with this. So is it 21% of the 81%?
21% of the 81% said it was the first time that they've done this, and it's because of what's going on in the world right now. Yeah. So normally they would not have grabbed that, but that has increased. I don't have a historical graph as far as that goes of what it was before, but that has increased.
It's great data. Mm-hmm. I mean, to look at, and this work came out last month, right?
Yep. So it's been hot off the press as far as that goes. These guys do a very good job of doing the benefit study. This is a Hartford's future benefit study.
We also like Kaiser, right?
Kaiser is great as well.
But
absolutely.
They're just a timing. They've got another month to go.
Yeah, they're coming out a little bit more closer to October. Their surveys are very valuable, very insightful, and they actually focus on what are the healthcare industry providers actually saying, what are they seeing. So they're able to provide different things.
So email Jeff at D Hilton. When it comes out, we'll get you in the right direction, or we'll put it on the website, because that's something we I think it has value for the industry.
And I think in a future webinar, we're probably going to have to revisit this and talk about that. And I think that would be a good opportunity to really tap into that as well. So we'll certainly talk about that and discuss it, because these are very important. One way or the other, a lot of organizations are being decided upon, okay, the salary is right, the position is right, but man, I've really got to talk about these benefits.
Yeah.
And if you're not providing that benefit, I always go back into my head. I have a good friend of mine who is a diabetic, and going to a position, he had to have that insurance that took care of that situation without it increased in cost. And that was a big thing that weighed in the back of his head of, okay, if I take this position, am I going to have to sacrifice in certain areas?
Yeah.
So these are going to be your big ones that you need to focus on, because they're the ones that you've seen the most change, and make sure that you're providing something along in this area that gives them that safety and security of those benefits. The other piece, and why I wanted to show this one, is because I think we also have a disconnect between the fact of, okay, we've increased paid time off, whether it be from a PTO perspective or family leave or sick leave, whatever it may be. For the most part, the industries at large, not just credit unions, have provided more time off. However, we do have this sense and this feeling of there's repercussions if I take that leave, if I actually utilize that. And I've been harping on this a lot, of really understanding what your culture is. And if you have...
Hey, by the way, I just passed my 1-year anniversary.
On what?
Of time that I was supposed to take off that I haven't taken over my career.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a wonderful...
I have 380-something days I need to take.
So we get the situation where they're scared to take time off, or they're pressed so hard, John in this case, that he can't take time off.
It's not pressed that hard.
Oh, okay. We really require John around here. We would not go anywhere without John. So there's the thing we have to take into consideration, that, okay, if we provide this, we give them more opportunities to take time off, more opportunities. If you are sick, take that time off. But if we have a culture that is saying, you're taking time off, what are we going to do while you're gone? Obviously that's important.
Not fair to your coworkers and the burden you leave.
Right, and that's added stress.
And you've seen that on Wall Street right now with, the first and second year, young bankers revolting, saying, we want to only work 6 days instead of 7 days. And so the response to that, and I've seen this in other industries too, is what's deconnect? What do you say when you're offline?
Disconnect.
Disconnect?
Yeah.
I'll go with that.
We'll go along.
But the idea is that if you're not
Disengage.
disengage, yeah, I will be very upset if you answer an email. In fact, I'll test you.
Yeah.
I'll send you one to see if you answered or not. No emails, a day off. I've actually seen it move into the workplace where Friday's Zoom free. Nobody's going to schedule anything. You're going to take care of your house. Your internal things that you need to do to catch up, and we're not going to overschedule it. So I see it. Time off means time off is a big win for the companies that can do that. They're going to get a great response from their employees, and scheduling those times where we're not going to be collaborative. They're just going to work on your stuff.
Yeah. I saw somebody post something I thought was pretty funny. It's like, it seems like these weekends are now associated with that 35-minute smoke break that we had in the past, because the weekend just disappears. And immediately we're back into working and going along that process. So just keep in mind that if you are offering these things, that make sure that it is okay for your teams to utilize this, to leverage this, to actually get charged back up, because a lot of people are running ragged. All right, talking about health insurance, this information is from the D. Hilton Executive Staff Benefit Survey database. So this is actually from our clients and what we have actually kept track of over the years. This gives you a good perspective on where the total asset contributions, or where the average credit union contribution is based off of total assets versus single coverage versus family coverage. The numbers, we haven't seen too much of a fluctuation here, fairly consistent as far as that goes. But we do see a slight tick up as far as single coverage goes, and family coverage as well.
Right. So, credit unions have historically done a great job taking care of their employees and a commitment to the core benefits. And as you might expect, the larger credit unions get to do a bigger contribution towards family benefits. So, that tracks. Nothing surprising here, but it's nice to see the consistency year over year.
Yeah, I agree with that. Year over year, consistently, we're providing that kind of, which is a very, very valuable benefit. Again, looking back into our benefits database here, we look at PTO and versus a traditional vacation type of program. And we have seen a slight tick up in these numbers. But again, nothing that's very drastic, because this is a large data sample size, so a good perspective. But we're looking at it from a PTO program. In general, if you're exempt for less than a year, they provide about 8 days in which you're able to use either for sick or vacation. Same goes true with the non-exempt positions. Compare that to the traditional vacation sick leave, same kind of thing there. You're looking at vacation exempt, 7 days, and you have about 5 sick days as well.
In the past, when we look at these surveys, it's always like half and half, 51, 49, 49, 51 of, do you do PTO versus, traditional plans? And in the past, the reason people didn't want to look at a PTO concept was, well, employees will make bad choices and then they'll run out of days at the end of the year. That really didn't come to fruition. And so, we're really don't take a position what is better. It's really based on your membership and the dynamics of that membership. But PTO is not going to hurt you. It's not going to help you.
Yep. And we've actually seen some studies and some data that suggests that and I'm not talking about the staff level, maybe at the executive level, unlimited PTO. They've actually shown that executives end up taking less time off with an unlimited PTO, but feel more refreshed from it, because they don't have the stress of, okay, well, I'm going to lose these 7 days if I don't use them by the end of the year. Or you have that timing of, okay, if I use 3 days now, that means I'm not going to have 10 days at the end of it, or something along that line.
I mean,
it removes that whole thing.
If I had $1 for every time I'd ask executive, and how many days do you get off? I don't know.
Yeah. When it doesn't matter and you're able to use them as you need, it's perfectly fine. And we've actually seen the studies show that in general, the executives start taking a little bit less time off, but they don't actually feel the effects of taking the less time off, which is a beautiful thing. Also, we're going to be looking at the retirement benefits. We look at 401k and matching contributions. Not too much differentiation here, but as you would kind of expect, the overall is 84% matching. And the cap percent did increase a little bit with this data set as comparison to last year. I believe it was 4% last year. Now we're looking at an overall of 5%. The other big thing to take out of this one is that the average credit union non-match contributions, people are investing in their retirement plans. We've given them the opportunity to provide for their future by putting a little bit extra into this. We've said it's a good idea, and they've taken us up on that.
And it's all demographic.
All demographic.
Yeah.
You got it. Straight across the board. So everybody that's providing this is just based off of HRAS reported data, information directly from the source. So when we look at medical cost trends, the medical cost trend is projected to be slightly lower than it was last year. Last year, we did see a pretty substantial jump back up after quite a trend over a couple of years of moving down. It did move up pretty substantially, and now we're seeing that it's going to possibly step down just a little bit. So the projected cost for 2022 is going to be about 6.5%, which is down from 7%. So we're seeing a slight decrease.
I love the footnote on this. An attorney wrote that.
Yeah.
Could be, could not be. I don't really want to commit.
We're kind of eyeballing it here. We're going to make it.
But what's interesting about this is healthcare costs have gone up.
Mm-hmm.
And so why the trend over 10 to 15 years is down is because we've done more. We've required more cost sharing.
Yep.
We've looked at plans to say, okay, we can't offer this level of benefit, but if employees put a little bit more in, then we can offer the same level of benefit. And that trend, if you look at it, was a number of years until COVID.
Absolutely.
And then it was truly, having to pay for some of that stuff.
Yeah, and it definitely cost went up at that point, but we're not quite seeing the expected. I actually expected to see a little bit of an increase over the 7%, but thankfully we're backing off of that. However, when we talk about the actual employee spending of what we look at for that, it is actually expected to be higher than it would have been if COVID hadn't happened. So the gray trend line there is kind of what the expected was, and then what actually happened in relation to the COVID-19. And you saw a big drop at 2020 as people pushed off those things that they needed to have done, or going to their doctor for regular checkups. They just didn't do it. They pushed that off, or
and
procedures that they needed.
Mandated pushing.
That's true. Absolutely.
There wasn't as many slots. There wasn't as many availability to check things out and those types of things.
And so now, unfortunately, that bill is kind of coming due, that people have to go through certain procedures that they need, or they're actually going back to being regular checkups, things along that line. So spending is expected to increase from 21 and to 22, just slightly higher.
And you see this trend with children, and you see this with seniors.
Across the board.
It's not just the folks in the workspace.
You got it. It is absolutely across the board. So just keep that in mind, that there is probably going to be some increased cost on your employees, providing when we talked about those benefits in the past, how important those benefits are, keeping an eye on that. One, you've negotiated great rates as best you can, things along that line to try to offset some of this increased spending that we are expecting. So healthcare priorities, we kind of talked on this, and we touched on this as well, have shifted. We're offering more opportunities for telehealth. This was a big thing with COVID-19 when you couldn't go into the offices. Providing an opportunity for your insurance to cover these kind of situations, or providing a plan that covers this, where they can go to a virtual meeting with their doctor for routine care. People find this very valuable. The other big piece here that I really highly recommend looking into and maintaining a very good service that you can provide is the mental health services. This is becoming increasingly important, as kind of we talked about in the last one, as people continue to languish in their, as things continue to progress, as the stress and anxiety continue to increase, as responsibilities continue to increase. Mental health services are going to be very, very important.
Yeah, I mean, the telehealth, it really tracks or mirrors like in the 80s when we were trying to get members to use ATMs, and we'd have all these gimmicks and gadgets and demos to get people to get their money out of a machine instead of a teller. And telehealth has kind of been like that. Once a person does it, if we can get them to do that first one, it seems to be a really desired channel or something that people want to do, which is going to be good.
And one of the big things that was a big surprise about this, and I was doing some research in this as well, and I don't have the exact number of this, medical examinations obviously
we can wait.
We
I'd like to go
got,
get
we'll
that.
circle around on this.
We got nothing but time, Jeff, if you want to go get that.
Medical examinations were difficult, of course, when it comes down to telemedicine. So, the doctor looks in your throat, you're trying to point it at the camera, things along that line. However, this ties into the mental health services, psychiatric care, counseling, things along that line went great over a remote location because you can actually still have a conversation with somebody. We can still talk about things. So keep in mind that that's another way that is actually very valuable and provides a great service through a telehealth type of service as well. Companies are offering great benefits. Simple, no ifs, ands, and buts about it. However, when we touched on this as well, few companies are offering childcare services. And one of the big things and one of the reasons people have been very hesitant to come back to work, especially in the front lines, a lot of people associated that with, we've got extended benefits from the government. They've got unemployment, that they're making more money there than they would coming back to the office. And then those benefits kind of expired. Yeah. And we haven't seen that resurgence in people coming back. And a lot of it has to do with multiple facets, but one of them is childcare. While they were not having to go into the office, they were able to save the money on childcare because it is very expensive, of course. They were able to provide that nurturing environment that they liked. And then they said, okay, come on back to work. And I said, well, wait, I'm not sure if I agree with that. Same thing with remote work. If we're not providing some kind of benefit to say, hey, we want you to come back. And by the way, we understand that you have childcare needs, things along that line. We're going to provide a benefit that helps support or offset some of the costs associated with that. Not very many organizations are actually doing that. They're providing work options. They're providing flexible hours. They're providing those flex days. But when it comes down to childcare, we're not seeing that. And it's a big portion of it.
But we've never faced this in the history of the United States.
Absolutely. And it's a tough problem to solve.
I mean, roles and who's going to do what in the family unit, we thought we figured out. It changes every day. And this has been a major stress factor for people coming back or feeling comfortable coming back.
And this unfortunately has disproportionately affected women because we kind of defaulted in some cases to traditional marriages and traditional families and saying, okay, the women stepped up and we're managing the childcare portion of that. They shouldered the largest burden of that.
Tell the whipped cream story.
Oh, no.
Do.
Yes.
Tell your kids are
4 and 3. Almost 3, sorry. 4 and almost 3.
They're both Gerber babies. They should be they should be models.
I may be biased, but they're the most beautiful people on the face of the earth. It's simple as that. Sorry, John.
No worries. I accept that. I accept second place.
The second place, third technically. Okay. One. Well, actually, no. They're 1 and A, so they're equal. It's not 1 and 2.
But tell them about the whipped cream.
So I'm working and I get a text from my wife, and all I see just in the thumbnail is this little tub of Cool Whip, and I see a white splash background. And I go, oh no, I know exactly what happened here. Apparently, they reached up on the counter, saw the tub of Cool Whip, very kindly went to the drawer, grabbed 2 plastic spoons, sat down on the couch, and went to town on this tub of Cool Whip.
It was more like a
and there's the thing.
Watercolor.
Unfortunately, when it comes to a 3 and a 4-year-old, they're going to have fun with a white glob of fun, enjoyable Cool Whip. So the dark gray couch that we have now, the seats are completely white. My wife said that Logan, my youngest one, came into her room. He was covered in head to toe whipped cream and just went, hi. As if nothing was wrong in the world.
And I blame it's 100% on your wife.
I wouldn't say that by any stretch of the imagination.
She won't hear this, right? Look, most moms drink wine. Why was your Why was your wife eating a tub of whipped?
Why was the whipped cream out?
Why was that her coping mechanism? Those are horrible kids.
So, and the fun part of this is that it was a brand new tub. It was the 2-pound tub because we'd gotten it for her. I think it was for her birthday. We were going to do ice cream and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so she said she was so mad that she didn't yell. You know that she was mad when there's no yelling. It's just, it's time to go to your room. And they listened. They took a bath and they went to the room, and that was the end of the story. I said, okay, do I need to come home? She said, no. It's best if you stay there for this time.
I think that was a wise decision.
Anyway, the good news is they will survive to 5 and 4. So
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. But providing that childcare services, you see why it's so important.
but in today's environment, you're doing a Zoom call and you're talking to clients, or you're talking to a member, and then you've got that shenanigans going on in the background. Just another day at the Rock household.
Yeah, there you go. Thankfully, it's not the tattoo story. That's always the fun.
We'll save that one for next.
We'll save that one for next time. So anyway, when it comes down to it, we have to take into consideration that a lot of the child care services were shouldered by the women in this case, and that has actually shown in the data. So we need to take that into consideration, look at that stuff, and make sure we're providing a work environment that welcomes people back, that gives them the opportunity to say, okay, I don't feel like I'm sacrificing here. I'm not really having to choose between two avenues, and being able to move forward from that point. All right. And that's the end. Yeah. So we have gone through.
So we hope you've enjoyed this format. For a number of years, this was a written document, and we thought it would be, just a better vehicle to kind of talk through some of the ideas that we're seeing and some of these trends. So this presentation can be downloaded with the commentary, but we can also send you a copy of just the PowerPoint deck, if we want to call it that. So you're welcome to use these slides in your strategic planning work and your budgeting and forecasting. That's our commitment to the industry, to provide stuff like that. And we spend a lot of time trying to predict the forecasts, and I'm very proud of our team. We get it right. And so we think you can go into your boards and your deliberations with confidence with this data. And as long as you keep working with us, we'll keep providing this year after year. So we thank you for your time today. And if there's any specific questions, we didn't want to open this up to a forum because there's sometimes with the benefits, it's really specific. Mm-hmm. And so we'd rather spend the time, if you need any questions, call us, and we're happy to see what we can do to help out.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have any questions or need anything, we're always happy to have a conversation about this. When it comes down to it, we have great data. We have that, but we need to turn it into information. We can provide you the data, but if you need some help interpreting that or how it's applied to your particular situation, we're always happy to consult towards that.
And if anybody has a whipped cream connection, Cool Whip connection, please.
Or a way to get it out of a couch. That's the funny part is that the leather couch is upstairs because that's usually where the kids are at. And of course, no, they didn't use that couch. So
it was a nice couch.
It was a very nice couch. Okay. Now it's an ant trap. So. Okay.
All right.
Anyway, on that wonderful bombshell, thank you so much for spending time with us. We do sincerely appreciate it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We're always happy to help out any way that we can. And we look forward to being able to do this again next year for 21 years going strong. But until then, please stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All the best. Take care.